Alright, welcome back to the Professor Chronicles. This is a student-centered video, so I gotta juggle some things around here. One of the most common questions I get from brand new students is, okay, smart guy, you got all this advice. How would you do it? Now, it's been about 20 years since I was in college, 15 plus since I was in graduate school. So, things have changed, but good practice never goes out of style. That's why the background image for this week's video is a calendar. Beginning of class. The first day or week of class is usually a whirlwind. You got to run around, get your books, get your schedule. Doesn't matter if you're online, on ground, blend ed, doesn't matter. By the time you've got your feet beneath you, the first exam or project is probably due, staring you in the face. You're wondering, oh my God, how did I get here? It always feels like there's a ton of time until there isn't. This was a huge mistake that I made about a dozen times in college. I always thought I could wait. I always thought I'd have time. If I was back in class today, I'd force myself to take a hard look in the mirror, especially at the end of the first day or first class meeting. During the self-assessment, I'd have to ask myself some tough questions. Number one, what's due first? Or more specifically, what's going to ambush me? This first week, like I said, first 2 weeks, it's a whirlwind. It doesn't matter if you're in a school that has 8-week terms, 12-week terms, 15-week terms. It doesn't matter. Those first deadlines always run up on you. So I would say if you don't want to get caught, figure out what the first threat is. Number two, when am I going to work? It's real easy to look at the assignments, look at your schedule and go, okay, yeah, I can get that stuff in there. But you know what's even easier? Letting that stuff slip away. So if I were doing it again, I would need to know when I'm going to work on this stuff. Now, when I was in school, we didn't have Outlook calendars, Google calendars. It was all, handwritten notebooks and calendars on the wall. Again, that's why I got a calendar as a background image. You need to know when you're going to work. And don't look at the schedule and go, oh, look, this is due next week, Tuesday. That means I can get it done on Sunday and Monday. Nope, because other stuff pops up. That leads to question 3. How much time is this stuff going to take? This one got me plenty of times. I overestimated my abilities and underestimated how long things would take. All-nighters are no fun. And if I'm honest, there's all sorts of tantalizing distractions that come up. Now, when I was in college, that took the form of Nintendo games, videos, drinking with friends, hell, just hanging out in my dorm room doing nothing. All those things made it real easy to push that work off. I didn't know how much time stuff was going to take. And then all of a sudden I would get to Sunday night and go, oh crap, I got a paper due tomorrow morning. Sit down at the girlfriend's house at the computer and type away, frantically scrambling through my resources. Pray like hell the library's open on Sunday afternoon where I can find the resources I need. Now, it's a lot easier now that you're online. But again, you can run out of time. If you leave no time, you can't ask any questions. Question number 4. What is going to be considered good or high quality work? Too often we end up just throwing some nonsense onto a piece of paper and calling it good. Throw it into a text box online, send it off and go, good enough. I submitted an answer. Then you lose some points and get some scathing feedback, and you got to work twice as hard to overcome your stupid mistake on the first assignment. Don't let that happen. Start day 1 with the idea that you're going to submit good, high-quality work, complete work. If you're in an online class that asks for discussion posts and it tells you need to post 3 times, don't just post once and walk away. You're asking for a failing grade. Finally, number 5, I'd write down my professor's contact info. So I would ask, what are you going to do with your professor's contact info? Keep that stuff readily available. Stuff happens and you don't want to have to dig for a phone number or an email in a crisis. If you're taking an online class, there's about a dozen ways you can get in touch with your professor. Email, learning management system, in-class messages, Skype, phone, text. If you're at a traditional campus, it's really about the same way. They'll probably have an office phone with voicemail. They might have a department assistant you can call, email, class messaging. The point is, know how to get in touch with your professor, and then keep that information handy. Now, you survived the first week, the first set of activities. So now you need to take a look in that old mirror again. It's easy to beat yourself up when you get that first set of grades, just as it's easy to think you're made in the shade and coast. Look, you can't get an A in the first week of class, but you can set yourself on the road to an F. That's the truth. Point 1, take a serious look at the first items. In the case of classes I teach, we've got discussion boards, an exam, and usually some homework. I compare my process to the results. Did I invest enough time? Did I work smartly? Did I study the right stuff? Did I take advantage of the opportunities put out in front of me? In some classes, you'll have learning modules that you can go through until you're done and get all the points. Sometimes you can take a test multiple times. In other cases, a professor will give you a study guide. Did you use it? If he or she hands you a study guide, it's probably for a good reason. That stuff's going to be on the exam. Okay, you weren't perfect. You got some points off. What went wrong? It's easy to blame it on the teacher, the book, the lesson, the lecture, the technology, but you got to accept that you're learning. And part of that includes learning how to study. I'm shocked at how many folks come into a class and don't know how to read a textbook. They try to read it like Harry Potter. We'll talk about that more in a later video. We also learn that students, especially those first semester students, don't know how to study. They've been spoon-fed through their entire academic career. Or maybe they're just a gifted test taker and never had to study before. But the fact is they don't know how to sit down and pull the information out of the notes, the textbook, the presentation, the media. Question 3, what will I change? And this is a tough one. If we're not honest with ourselves, it gets real easy to repeat mistakes, repeat bad scores, paint yourself into a corner. There's a saying in baseball, you can't win the pennant in April, but you can definitely get your way out of the playoffs in April. What does that mean? It means you can't do everything you need to do in the first week of class, but you can screw things up royally and put yourself so far behind you never catch up. In one university I've worked for, the terms are 8 weeks, so points aren't always universally distributed, but if they are, you've lost 12% of the points just by missing week 1. Sometimes that's even more. I guess my point is, you got to get off to a strong start, and if you screw up, you got to work really hard to make up for it. You got to ask questions. You got to stay in contact. For the love of God, don't keep doing the same thing. You might ask, what's going on here off screen? Well, this lecture comes from an actual presentation I give to my students. So I'm actually rolling through my notes that I actually give to my students. So this is real stuff. This comes from an actual classroom. In the final days of any class, it's time to look for another set of questions and suggestions. It is not the place for panic. So as you're heading into a final exam, ask yourself, where do I stand? If you've missed over half the class, not turned in most of the activities, you're not in a position for that A. You need to form a realistic picture of where you stand and determine how high you can aim. If it's not possible for you to pass, maybe you need to talk to an advisor and see if there's another class you are passing or what it's going to take to get rescheduled for next term. Don't look at your point total and go, hey, I got it made in the shade. I'm going to cruise. Nope. We'll talk about that more in a minute too. How do I get to that passing grade? In my estimation, every class has relatively easy tasks and then some tougher, scary ones. Low investment and high investment tasks is how some of my colleagues discuss it. You definitely want to max out on the easier stuff and build a cushion for the harder stuff. If you've got a participation grade in a class, show up. Raise your hand once in a while. When the teacher solicits feedback or asks questions, or if you're having a class discussion, get your hand up and engage. Participation points are easy. All you got to do is show up and be active. Be alive. Fight for those points. Those are easy. And they'll definitely help pave the way to success when you have a tough exam or a long paper. Likewise, make sure you don't give points away. I'll admit there are times when I got surprised by a test or a deadline. That was my fault. Now I live through my Outlook calendar. Again, Outlook, phone calendar, whatever. Write it down. No surprises. Unless you've got a professor going old school and rolling in with the pop quizzes, you should never roll into class today and go, oh, we got a test? What? Not happening. Extra point. And this one bears repeating. Zeros hurt twice. That's right. Zeros hurt at least twice. What do I mean? Well, not only did you miss the exercise, but you missed out on the info, which you'll probably see again on the midterm, final, or project. You missed out on the feedback you would have gotten. So if you ditch the week one exam, you're not going to get feedback from your instructor. You're also not going to get information on how well you know the material. So when you see it on the midterm or final, you haven't learned anything. You don't know where you stand. So you've shot yourself in the foot 2-3 times at least. Next point, stop suffering in silence. When I was in school, I didn't make use of my teachers or the grad students who were there. I didn't do it. I zoned out, and it forced me to work harder at home, back in my dorm or my apartment. I didn't attend review sessions because I thought I knew it all. I didn't go to office hours because I was busy screwing around. I thought I knew it all. So I didn't get to ask questions. I never got clarification. I never got advice. This meant that This meant that the tough stuff had to wait for the next class, or I had to put in hard time just sitting there, toughing it out, figuring it out, maybe begging my friends who went to class to explain it to me, or just pounding my head against that book until I got it. Stop ignoring what you've already learned. Once I finished a test, I got the score. It was out of my head. I didn't go back through the exams to see where I went wrong. I didn't look at the ones I got right to make sure I got them right and didn't just guess right. I didn't look at the ones I got wrong and find out where my faulty logic or faulty learning was. So that means if we had it again on a midterm or a final, I'd probably screw it up again. I didn't work to develop my exam skills. I didn't learn how professors construct questions, what they're looking for, where they pull the information from, how they create their questions. I didn't figure out what they were looking for on essays or short answer questions. I left all this great info in the proverbial trash bin. Let's talk about finals week. I got a little out of sequence here. I don't care. I'm going to keep going. So finals week is almost always ultra crowded. Double check what's due, when it's due, when you're going to fit it in. Look at your calendar. Address any issues. It's far easier to fix issues like missed work or a disputed grade before grades are submitted, before the course wraps. Fixing issues also gives you a better picture of where you stand. And I'm just going to be candid. If you come rolling in well after grades are submitted and say, my professor screwed me out of a grade, my professor did this, my professor did that, they're not going to have a sympathetic ear. Part of it is in how you approach it. I'm dead serious here. If you come to your professor and say, Professor, I got a question about my grade. I see this. I think I deserve this. Keep it professional. They'll work with you. But if you go above their head and go to their chair, go to a dean yelling and screaming about how they're out to get you and crush your dreams, you've slammed that window shut. You haven't created a relationship. You don't have someone who wants to help you. What you've done is you've created an enemy. You got to address those issues like a professional. And lastly, in this area, don't punch out early. Sometimes I'd overestimate my standing and cruise through the final to my own detriment. I'd underperform and drag an A down to a B just by being lazy. Now that I'm a professor, you know what I see? I see students who go into finals week and go, hey, awesome, man, my running percentage is in the 80s. Cool. But then they forget that in finals week you got a unit test, a paper, a final exam, and sometimes that's worth 30% of your grade. And they blow it all away. And that 80 turns into a 50 real quick. That guaranteed B turns into an F. See it all the time. Don't suffer in silence. Don't ignore what you've learned. And here's the last one. This is probably my harshest point. Again, we got a little out of sequence. I don't care. The info's all good. Stop listening to your idiot friends. I mean it. I do dumb stuff like skip class and count on my friends to fill me in. Or I'd let my idiot friends talk me into skipping class. If they were there, they may not have been paying attention. They may have been flirting with some girl, playing with their phone, or just generally screwing around. They're certainly not experts. I let my knucklehead friends infect me with their poor listening skills and half-hearted attempts instead of asking the professor or their assistant. I trusted them with my learning and my future. Sometimes you need to be a little selfish. No one will fight. No one will care about your future like you will. So you got to take control. All right, that's a lot of stuff. So let's bullet point this. Get a clear picture of what's due, including dates. Put it on a calendar. Attend class and stay on top of questions. Do something every day so you don't get overwhelmed. And if you got to miss time, reach out. I didn't include this, and I should probably do a longer video on it, but if you miss time, try to reach out before you miss time or ASAP right after. Say, look, professor, something came up. I couldn't be there. I want to fix it. Don't disappear for 3 weeks or let it sit like nothing happened and then come back and go, I'm failing because my professor didn't let me make up the week 2 exam. Professor's probably going to come back and go, hey, Susie student, why didn't you do it? Leo learner, what's going on, man? Where you been? I've been sitting here waiting for you to talk to me about it. And I tell you what, a dean looks at that and says, well, the student made no effort to make up the test. I don't see any reason to work with them. That's just how it works. We talked about doing something every day. Take a realistic look at progress after every set of tasks. Stay in touch. Teachers are experts. They want to help you. They want you to be successful. For the love of God, don't start going off on this tangent about how they're out to get you. That's just not how it works. You know that your teachers are probably getting static from some sort of board or accrediting body about retention and student progress. The school they work for probably has metrics on student persistence and student retention. They don't want to fail everybody. They want you to pass almost as much as you want to. So there you go. That's this week's student video. I'm going to shut this thing down. Look for a teacher advice video coming up next.